Can you hear me? Good day, beloved. Can you hear me? Much love to you and yours. I was told that there was a problem hearing me last time, so I started it over. I was wondering if you could hear me. Much love to you and yours. I want to talk today about the Truman Show. About feeling like you're in a Truman Show. I want to talk about how they police us. I want to talk about myself, basically. This is Regina's Rabbit Hole. So I want to talk about my life, basically just talking about myself. And so that leads to the connections with some other things very easily. Okay. So you go through life as a targeted individual where it's weird because it's like nobody sees anything. Kind of like the John Quick movie where they were like killing people and doing stuff. And the people around didn't see what was going on at all. It was really metaphorical. And so they put a lot of pressure on you that can see. Hi, Sweet Pea. What's up? They put a lot of pressure on you that can see. Good day, family. Much love to you and yours. Thank you for joining me. You get policed if you don't fall in a line and think like everybody else. And there's a lot of gatekeepers. It just naturally happens depending on where you are with the kind of clergy and teachers and doctors that they will have in the area, how they police, you know, what you want coming and going. And somewhere along the line between asking questions in Sunday school or not agreeing with the history they were teaching in class at regular school and challenging the parental authority when it came to incest, I don't think I fit in very well. I live a very strange life, and as I find out more in regards to how they're policing the Matrix, it's weird because the road, as I find out more about myself, is unfolding also. And this can get pretty intimidating at times. But I have other children from this bloodline. And I need to speak up because it's not like the abuses that are going on, being a targeted individual, which falls under human trafficking. It's not like it's going away. It's not like they're stopping or they care about who you are as a person. You have killers policing society, and it's really sad, even if it is just a paper cut where the person is policing a Facebook page, or they're doing stage performance where they do like acting and stuff. They orchestrate these conversations and things so that you can hear them when you're out in the public. If you go to the grocery store, or say you go to the gym, or you're at work. This is for people also who don't know what the life of a targeted individual looks like. perhaps some of the things that are going on in your life, you don't even realize what's going on because there's different stages of it. I've been in this program for a very long time. There's many different reasons why people say that they end up in the program, but most of it, I think, is because they think differently or they challenged authority somehow. You know, some people say that they had spouses that were in the authority position, like policemen or in the service, or judges, you know, clergy of some type. Some people challenged authority. Like, I know one woman that challenged a judge. I mean, what he was doing was clearly foul, and she just pointed it out. And it wasn't to challenge him per se. It was just to get her freedom, because what he was doing was interfering with that. Like, she was just another number, and what he was doing was foul. So she had to step forward and challenge the system on her behalf. She had to step forward and challenge this judge to be free. And when she did, they found out more false things that he did, you know, and that ended up putting her, red flagging her for a targeted individual. And so what they'll do is, you go on this list and they have, let me show you. There's an invisible hand that flows, that works, that floats what goes in society. It's what we allow and what we don't allow. It's how we get policed, right? You get policed by neighbors, clergy, teachers. When you go to school, the courts and the police. They have a first response system where, like, when you call 911, when you call 211, there's another system now that you're flagged where they know who you are. And you end up kind of like sheep-herded into another section. One time, many years ago, I called the police because there was a problem. I was the one that was arrested, and they lied on me. Lucky someone had a conscience and told the clergy of the court what really happened, that I wasn't violent and that was a lie that the cops told. They said in order to arrest me, in order to make the arrest, that I tried to hit my husband, and that was a bold, straight up lie. And they did that in order to arrest me because I wasn't agreeing with what they were saying. That was more a male dominant thing. And I felt like if you did your job, then you would be policing him and not me. But instead, I ended up carried away. This was many years ago. I've been at this address for about 10 years now. So this was like maybe 6, 7 years ago. And after that happened, I was told not to challenge the system. And even though they let me out and they said, okay, well, the cop lied and they let me out, I was told not to challenge it. Of course, you know, to be scared, stay in my place, stay in my lane. That's a cop. You know, they're all around you kind of thing. So that's one thing. All right, imagine that. So you're living your life and you're trying to live your best life and you're trying to make adjustments and do what you can. Knowing what I know now through research, I know how they police you through certain systems, like counselors and therapists and stuff. Certain organizations are mandated by court to say if somebody feels like they want to commit suicide, or if they're doing something that will endanger them, or they feel like what they're doing might endanger others. And so that's mandated by court when you become a civil servant, right? To report on your fellow citizens, not your fellow citizens, but yeah, even them, or the people that you're servicing. You're supposed to, that's one of the conditions of being a helping hand. So it goes beyond that when you get people who serve in the military. I always wondered why I was just such an oddball. I'm empathic, I'm different. I'm one of those things they try to suppress. How come they have spiritual people and shaman and healers, spiritual healers and things of a different nature in other cultures? But in this one, it's pretty industrial and pharmaceutical. It's so compartmentalized and a way to enforce more consumerism. These spiritual systems like clergy, and it's corrupt because these spiritual systems have a lot of power because they have a lot of money, and they have the ability to brainwash people on behalf of their agendas. And a lot of times, like a chessboard, like the art of war, excuse me, they're using our agendas against us, like they use us against us. They're using the 7 deadly sins as an access point to derail us from what we need to be doing, even to help one another. And so it's allowed when you're twisting the universal laws to be able to do that. So they're playing with black magic also. They're backed by an invisible hand, and this invisible hand is partly backed by not only the clergy upholding it by oath, but the system itself in the way that it believes, in the way that it looks at its people, like mental illness. I'm not saying that there's not people who have problems mentally and they're not mentally ill. Heck, check this out. I'm saying, look at this though. In the beginning, for a slave to run away was considered mentally ill because the predominant thought was that people should be owned. A while ago, when it came to mental illness and deciding what that was, being homosexual was considered mentally ill, but then they decided that it wasn't, so they took that back. Slavery hasn't been updated. It's defined by how you look at it. So you have to be able to have a complex or layered intelligence to even be able to see the updated systems of slavery and policing mankind. We've been sleeping from what? A revelation from what? Warring against principalities and high places. Like, what are they talking about? You're talking about dark magic. You're talking about people who have a big budget. You're talking about people who know how to orchestrate systems, and they had plenty of time. And I'm just an individual citizen caught in this because I was caught being different, caught thinking different. So they've been policing me for years. Part of my life, I was institutionalized. I thought that I was crazy. I could not tell the difference between, excuse me. I couldn't tell the difference between, okay, without training, because they hide the fact that some of us are spiritual, not just young, wild, and free concept, but I didn't know the difference between an ancestral voice, my inner voice, like your inner voice when something is just talking to you, or the voice of our Creator. Now they tell you there's a one good one and the devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other. That's a way a metaphor, a symbolic way of explaining what I'm saying. You know, but there's many different voices, and I didn't know. They kept us so compartmentalized, you know, that if you heard something, anything, don't pay attention. One time, the voice I heard saved my freaking family's life because there was a fire when I was a child. It wasn't Grove Court, it was this other address. My mom used to always tell me to lock this back door. Of course you would, you know, single mom, you know, teenage daughter and other children, you know, lock that freaking door. And that's the door that I try to be slick and, you know, you want to talk to your friends or whatever, you slip out the side door. So she wasn't having it. She told me to lock that door. This particular time, I was staying with a friend, and there was a voice that told me not to lock this door. And I mean, I knew that it meant a butt whooping. I wasn't even going to be there, y'all. And it was like weird because you don't really want the butt whooping or for it to be found, and it was totally unnecessary and it wasn't defiant. But yet at the same time it was defiant because by listening to that voice, I was defying my mother. So there's this line there when you start to listen to the inner voices, and there's a difference between something telling you to do something stupid, you know, that's detrimental or going to derail you from your life. Like a lot of the stuff and the messages that we get every day from the media and the messages that we get telling our young folk and the old folks, go drink this, go do that, go screw this, go beat up that, go feel jealous about this, go eat that, telling us all kinds of dumb stuff. But yet in our society, I've learned that we're derailed from the inner voices and messages that make other people wise people because they're taught within their culture to cultivate that and internalize these messages where it benefits their culture. We're steered away from that. We're steered toward, herded toward things like the nightclub and clergy that tells us not to think. They tell us what to think. And this is what happened to me. And so along those ways, in this space, I ended up in the hospital, not knowing that they also use sound and voice technology and that this stuff was being tested long before they let you know they're doing it now. This technology was being used. Things were being tried on me when I was in the hospital. I was kind of like all alone, and my behavior dictated it so that I should be a castaway. I should be a nothing. Drugs, alcohol, insanity. A wayward woman, lost, right? That's what everybody else is being taught. We're not being taught that. Some of the people that internalize things like addiction, according to the universal law, means a lack of liberation. And so that's why addiction manifests itself greatly in our society through various ways. It's because addiction, according to universal law, is a direct sign of lack of liberation. So it's going to show up as a universal law. And so they take advantage of these loopholes, these spaces where we don't know ourselves in society, and we get herded into directions of Kentucky Fried Chicken, you know, various fast food places where we can stuff our face, where they have oils and, you know, lots of saturated fats that mess your body tissues up. And so it's a layering effect when you add in the music, which is offbeat. It's not conducive to healing the body tissues. Your environment is noisy, so that's breaking your body auric field down, your magnetic field down. It's angry, you're pushing yourself. America runs on, you know, on what? You know what I'm saying? We're eating a lot of things that are not, we've been taught, a lot of things that feed industry, but they don't feed us spiritually, they don't nurture us. And so people who find out the things that do nurture us, and that they're counterproductive and going against the grain naturally of the industrial society. And those people can be herded very easily by a hungry, thirsty, greedy, vampiric, parasitic society that has been grown deliberately in order to rep labels Yeah, repping labels for the world. So the psych op is to make people who are against the flow of this to buy time, because this is a part of the spiritual war that's going on and the awakening of the people. So remember, we're looking at the ritual of church and state being joined together, but that happened long ago when you look at how we've been policed. What? False people, false friends, businesses used to herd people because there's incentives, whether it's a pat on the back, whether it's I'll forget about what you did, you know, through you know, some of the stories we hear about, you know, how they get public officials to shut up is they blackmail them, they set them up. Who is the populace that's setting them up? You know, there's a legion of people out there that are trained to set people up. That's counterproductive. Instead of helping us be productive, they're paid. And they'll go for it because people need money. They need to eat. They need some kind of value. They need purpose, right? It's a parasitic environment. This is the matrix. That's the real world that we're living in, is that we get policed. So the targeted individual is the human trafficked individual. You find that before you can orchestrate your ideas and get yourself going, that you're being policed, your ideas taken and utilized on larger platforms. As I encountered thinking that I was with spiritual people, thinking that I was walking away from this environment where when you're in the hospital, you know, they feed you full of medicine, they brainwash you, they erase your memory, they give you another go-to doctor, you know, they work that MK programming. And I'm not saying that they do this in every instance. I'm saying that's what happened with me. I'm not saying mental health doesn't have to happen. I'm saying what happened with me. And just like the slave, and just like with being gay, you know, the rules are subject to change in this matrix, you know, and it's really unjust. It's just us, not you. It's gang kind of thing. And so I found in my life, trying to decipher what was happening to me, trying to make sense of it, that I was being policed. And like, how the freak do they have such a big budget, and how are they being policed? And see, the weird part is that we don't want to believe that we're special. Everything tells us that we're not special, that we're not important. Then why do you matter at all? And so the glitch is, why bother? If you're not important, even the people policing the situation should know by now. I've said this before. If it's not important, then why are you policing these people with gang stalking? You know? Why is it happening at all? If it doesn't matter. There lies the rub, and trying to say that it doesn't matter by focusing on the very thing that doesn't matter. If it doesn't matter, you don't need to focus on it, let it go. Why do you need to police thoughts and people who have thoughts? I noticed over the years weird things like ideas that I had showing up in public when I had no money, not a penny, and I was fighting things that everyday people fight without even anybody noticing that I was struggling with this stuff. I would see things that would have been lucrative to me, helpful to me to get up out of my situation, just float by, opportunities. So like, I would think, how the heck do I get an opportunity like that for my own ideas? Knowing that if I said anything, after a while, first you think you're crazy, right? And they have the doctor and the therapist to be able to help you think that you're crazy. They have the medicines to be able to help you stay asleep. So they have everything to reinforce that you don't mean anything. You're just a crazy brown person or whatever, a crazy white person or what, a crazy woman. Whatever story they tell you, you're just a disenfranchised individual. They will give you social security, play on the words, social security, meaning this is your security. Keep your mouth shut, Go over there and sit down. Fall for the illusion, or you're going to get messed up. You fall into the targeted individual program, right? Because they're marketing you. And even the people that are helping police you don't realize that it would have been more lucrative to develop you. Who this energy came from as source, who source chose to flow the energy through. It would have been better to develop you rather than give rays or parts or bits and pieces of you, elusive parts of you, to some other franchise or individuals to emulate you, to fake being you, to mimic you. So you don't exist. Or you think that you don't. This is the matrix. You're on Facebook looking at other people, right? We're on Facebook looking at all the other images of the beautiful people, the people who have this, the people who can go do that, and trying to catch up with that, to have a little bit of that, to run away, to catch up with the Joneses, which is all a part of addictions, because we're not taught to tune into ourselves. If all is self, then we got to be the creator too. If all is self, then we have to be the tranquility too. If all is self, then we got to be the solution too. And so our ancestors allowed me, just like we have. You see the noise increase. This is all a science and a magic. Cutting down the trees around your area increases the noise pollutants. You know, it doesn't buff it anymore. And so you feel every bit of it. Cutting down the trees allows you to feel more exposed. So the privacy that you thought you had in your yard as a lady, it disappears. And all this other psychological stuff comes into play. Once your walls are down as an individual, when you're in the city or you're around an environment that's hostile, your genetic code is more influenceable, because we're mostly water. So these subliminal messages that they send in via airways or by way of street performances, they go in a lot more easily. They penetrate. And see, I didn't know this years ago, when I would walk around and I would leave the hospital and I was taking their medications and I was going to their therapist and I was trying to get my life together, and I would go to church and I would feel like I was paranoid, and they were telling me that I was paranoid, and I was feeling like I was just an ordinary person, that my ideas and my feelings and my emotions didn't matter at all, that we're hollow, we're nothing, we're niggers, we're ignorant, not Nagas. I didn't know about our history. I didn't know about our ancient past. I didn't know about the fear of the Black Moor Messiah, like Red and Blue Pill taught us online. I didn't know about the bits and pieces. I didn't know about the extraterrestrial past that Dan Winters taught us online. I didn't know that's why they feared women. I didn't know that's why, even if you got into a system where they started talking about things that would be beneficial or helpful to us as a society, it still felt like it was off balance as far as the male and female energy, and that it was being policed, that women were being policed. And now I was in another arena where I was challenging authority and not able to receive help from that venue of thought, from those men, my brothers, because the popular arena of thought was to keep policing that area and keep the women in check, that men need to be dominant, that they need to teach, that their voices need to be heard, that women need to be in check and teach the children, teach the young men and women, and that way if they find it valuable, they'll grow up and they'll teach the other men. But you, woman, you keep your mouth shut about the travesties that are going on and how they're policing you, about how you see other women being killed and maimed. You, woman, you keep your mouth shut. Then how can our brothers respect us? And how can we have respect and truly love ourselves if we're intimidated, so intimidated? Well, we have to keep keeping our mouth shut while they slaughter us. Not even just our children, our own children, but everybody else is around us, and we're told, you better get yours. This is just the way the world is. And then on the other hand, the cognitive dissonance is Why aren't people stepping up and doing their part and trying to fix this? So which one is it? Are we slaughtering each other all, running for the race line? Is it get yours? Or is it each one teach one, and we need to get to that place where there's something valuable standing next to us or up the street from us or somewhere? Because if we were all get it and follow the rules, no question asked, even if it's killing you and our children and our mothers and fathers and our environment, just get the check. Don't ask no questions. Just follow the rules. If it really is like that, then what's the point? And as you have people, I'm hearing people say, like, what's the point? This whole thing's going to blow up and blah, da, 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 da. Anyway, like, but what I'm finding is through our ancestors, as I get myself in a flow, the flow that they try to keep us away from, right? This natural space where we're connected to our inner self and our environment, to our ancestors, to each other, to the consciousness grid, this place where I can actually reach you. That's not fake and plastic. That place that they're usurping from us, that they're emulating, that comes from us, that they're making money off of. It comes from us. This is the life of a targeted individual. So they have psych ops to make you feel like it's not you, but it is you. And that's the matrix. I'm showing you the picture. That's why I'm relevant, because I'm showing you you. I'm showing you how this happens every day around us. I'm showing you how they even use us to police us for the crumbs, stalker or no. So I ran into these people through these self-help groups because I was still trying to get it, right? I started studying psychology, my own freaking self. And that's when I started to see them. I started to glimpse that what they were doing was counterproductive. And so if you're reading the same books on psychology, why the blip are you gaslighting me and doing these certain things? And then I had words, and I studied behavioral modification. Now I'm like looking, I studied personalities. One of my favorite things in college is to study the psychology with other people in the room. You know, they give you like little things to do together and stuff like that. You talk with other people and you have assignments and stuff. You do a lot of writing and you really can figure out how things work. Also, in addition, with sociology and anthropology. But that math, I wasn't feeling it. Anyway, I don't have my degree because I didn't do the math. And this was just for an associate's. However, I did help someone else get a master's in human services and drug and alcohol therapy. And I can get my associates in psychology as well as liberal arts and sciences. But that's not really important to me. What was really important to me was figuring out what the heck they were doing to me. And so while I was doing that, something that might impress the general public, I didn't get. Because it was more important for me to get the other bits and pieces that they're trying to get us to steer away from. While we get that little pat on the back, the good nigger sticker. I like that one. Be a good nigger sticker. There's so much more to the compartmentalization that they're teaching us, which is the mind control, okay? The targeted individual isn't just me that's being gang stalked and my ideas have been human trafficked. You see how I do the poetry? Music, I used to hear whole symphonies in my head on a regular. They have technology that's actually usurping your thoughts from right out your freaking brain. What they did to Sophia Stewart, where she got that down and had copyrighted her stuff and was interacting with the public and with other filmmakers and things like that. already interacting and hobnobbing with people like Muhammad Ali, coming from a family that had a military background. You see, they started they're even eating their own. They couldn't even utilize her correctly. Good day, beloved. Much love to you and yours, family. Bridget, Milton, right? Matthew. This is what they're doing to us. And that it doesn't look like it because we're so busy paying the bills and paying attention to what we were assigned as the program to tell us what is going on. This is what is going on. This is what is going on. This is what I see is going on. The conspiracy theorist, we know it's not a conspiracy anymore. And so we go deeper. And so I went deeper. I went into psychology because I had to. Our ancestors kept pushing me, telling me, don't believe the hype. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe what you're seeing. I was in the hospital and these clouds were floating by and there was this tree. And a voice came to me and said, like the angel and the devil on the shoulder, where did it come from? Where does the information come from if it doesn't all start with a thought? For better or worse, for lack of better words, for good or evil. Where do the thoughts come from? Good and evil, now we know, as interpreted by the dictator, by the person who's looking at the narration, the person in control of the funds, who's controlling most of the funds. Church and state are not separate. I remember asking questions in Sunday school and being red flagged. Excuse me. I remember being red flagged. Wait a minute. So you know the depth of thought that you're allowed to have as a human being. I already knew right there there's something wrong, man. They didn't like this little chick asking questions. This is me. That was a child in Sunday school. All I asked was, so, if sex is such a big thing, right? And incest is such a big thing, right? Fornication is a big thing. Incest is a big thing. If Adam and Eve, one girl, Eve, Adam, 2 sons. One son kills the other son. They're freaking ape crap. Oh, but don't even say, don't mention it. Because they're giving the lesson. Just listen. Okay, so there's 2 men left and 1 woman. You want me to learn math, right? Right? I'm supposed to learn math. This is why I can't stand math to this day. That whole scenario never made sense. 1 woman, 2 dudes. 1 dude, her son. 1 dude's son has offspring. Well, where did it come from? Yo, so that would mean that Eve had sex with her son in order for them to be more offspring. What do you mean I'm not supposed to ask about it? Bada bing, bada boom. The answer to the question is right there. Red flagged. So they wanted to give the lesson, but they didn't want you to elaborate and look at the red print. They didn't want you to look at the finer details of the lesson. Perhaps I know now that a lot of us are so indoctrinated into the program that we take what we can get. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know. I didn't get to the good part yet. You never know what you're going to get. You take what you can get, right? Perhaps your family, your mother and your father couldn't challenge the system. But something in our heart wanted something done, something fixed. We're in a time of revelation, right? And it's a spiritual thing. So they may mask spirit and compartmentalize it and package it so that it looks different. But it's not going to go away. Our answers are going to show up and show out. And they show up and show out within us. We are the answer, the solution. comes out in the egg, the sperm. Whatever was truly there. Energy never dies, it only transforms. And so conceptualize that. How they're trying to attack the answer to the virus. This environment is vampiric. We've become sick. So you really can't blame somebody for not thinking higher if they're sick. All you can do is be grateful that you're able to contemplate and think higher, and that you're not as sick, that you might have an opportunity to heal yourself in this vampiric, parasitic environment. It is the Walking Dead. There's ghouls, there's zombies, and there's vampires. There's a hierarchy to this world where there's a lack of resources. Hell, the lack of resources where there's gatekeepers, because they've paid their way in oaths and allegiances and in keeping quiet because they've done things and hurt people. And now they've been holding that in line. And so who are these invisible people? I went to AA, where you're supposed to be able to police yourself and be able to self-help, right? Self-help, woo, free self-help, yay! Be a good citizen, be a good citizen, be a good citizen. Self-help, go to NA, go to AA. I went to AA. No more drinky for me. I'm gonna find a way out of this situation that I'm in with he, right? Yeah, I know it's easier when you're drunk. I know it's easier to tolerate abuse and try to figure out what the freak is going on when you're drunk, right? Because, or when you're eating, or when you're doing a lot of other addictive behavior, right? When you're being domineering. There's many ways to get high and change the brain chemistry and neurons. It's all alchemy. They know this alchemy, and that's why the corner stores are just as important as the package stores, because of the foods and stuff and the treats we eat. I used to say that's how they got the fairies, with the cakes and pies and treats and snacks. Cakes! It's an alchemy. It's an alchemy. That's a whole nother subject about how there's technology being used to break down the body and be able to send messages with the labels and logos and stuff like that on the chips and pies and cakes. And the sugar and the dyes, right? And the pork and the glucose and all the different things that are being put in there that help clog us up, so that our machine malfunctions a lot quicker, so that our brain's a lot fuzzier. Hey, but if you're trying to figure that kind of stuff out, you might end up being a targeted individual because you're not paying attention to the norms and just eating it and going about your business. You're the weirdo that has conspiracy theories while people go to church and go to work. This is the psych op. This is the MK in the Matrix. Those people controlling it, they know what they're doing behind the scenes of what's going on. And anybody that's not in line they stick out like a sore thumb. If you start looking around, your butt is out up in there. You don't look in a sequence like everybody else. You're totally out of line. You've stepped out of line. You're like, you stick out like a sore thumb, as they say. So I would go to meetings. I went to the meeting, and I would hear people gaslighting me, street performing inside the meetings. I was asked to speak by somebody I knew years ago when I was being rehabbed from being a naughty girl from like 25, 30 years ago. And there was a little place across the street from a business called Timex. Knowing what I know now about occult systems, this makes a lot more sense now than it did then. I was just in it. The story is still unfolding before me as I'm in it. I know many things and some things, but not all things. Can still be manipulated and hurted because I'm blind and not within the system that's hurting me, and manipulating me, along with others. All I can do is tell you what I have been through, what I see, what I've learned, and hope that we're learning enough. I trust the universe that the road before me will lay out in the way that exactly the way that it's supposed to be. Much love to you and yours. I have children. I've been struggling and fighting with this thing, this invisible hand that is coming into light and has had, although it may be invisible to other people, has had a great impact in my life. So I go there, and I was asked to speak by a man that I knew years ago. He was a cook at this place where I was rehabbed and where I went to work across the street at this place. It just happened to be a factory called Timex, and I worked there. And I got me a little apartment, and this Italian lady and her husband, they were an old couple. I really thought they loved me. She would feed me coffee, espresso, treats. She had these little bread treats and stuff that she would have. She would meet me almost every day when I came from work. She'd invite me into her house, and they had a checkerboard floor. I used to always think that that was an interesting piece. It was bright too, like always clean and sparkling. Everything in her house was pretty old and antiquish looking, and they owned the building, and I rented an apartment from them. And across the hall was a couple of girls that roomed together, and there was this gay guy who was their friend, and we used to talk together, and we had a group dream experience. We wrote things together in a journal, put that on the shelf, because I had to put it on the shelf because I had forgot about it and then remembered it and then didn't really know the relevance of it. I had to learn occult systems and lucid dreaming and learn about myself, and that, you know, people do shared dreaming, and that there was some relevance to it, and not to just dismiss it. That put me on a not crazy list. That was one of the, oh, did you have a shared group dreaming experience? Check. Not crazy list. Okay. Put that on the, have you ever had a shared lucid dreaming experience? Check. Not crazy checklist. Have you ever been institutionalized at a government facility and then find yourself losing your memory and stuff after being in contact with them for a while and stuff? But yet everything else in your life where you're able to make sense and you're logical and stuff, but yet only defined crazy by their interpretation. Put a little check on there. Something else is wrong there too. You belong to another category now. Okay? People there looked familiar. I was telling my story about what was going on in my life and why I showed up there. That I wanted to learn to build the skills so that I could walk away from an abusive situation. That I didn't want to drink anymore. So I spilled my heart out. Citizen, looking for help. You ask for help, a closed mouth can't get fed, right? Citizen SOS, already done that. I went to the place where you do that, where you do your own work, where you could do that. And I sat there for years, and I realized that I wasn't getting the help and wasn't making the connections. And while I was sitting there, I was being gaslighted. So there was people inside there. We were all sharing our stories and stuff about stuff going on in our homes. What you see here, let it stay here, here. Reading the material. Hoorah. Kind of stuff. It's a different way to, you feel like you're out of the church and you can define your own spirituality. And you're in another arena where things can be real if you just connect with the right people, right? Not with gang stalkers, you can't. Nope. Not with people upholding this invisible hand, you can't. They were gaslighting me. There was things that were happening inside my house that were only personal. Like, I was a hermit for years, and I hardly left my house. Maybe to go to the grocery store and to that therapist and to take their medications like they told me to. Then spiritually, from listening to the spirit and stuff, things started happening after I saw the cloud, when I was in the hospital one day and I saw the cloud and the tree, and it told me, like the angel and the devil, they're going to kill you. Stop listening to them. They're not trying to help you. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to help you. You have to help yourself because they're trying to kill you. When I heard that voice, and I had been in and out of that system for so long, I realized that this voice was more true and more real than anything that I had heard from these people. And I put my cigarette out because I was smoking Newports at the time, and I had to have them. And I put my cigarette out, and I went to have them buzz me back into the unit that I was in, that I was so grateful to have earned the privilege of being well enough for them to buzz me out so I could at least have a cigarette. No say-so over what type of medications they gave me or what kind of treatment they gave me. And they just treated me any kind of way. And my only intercessor was my husband. Because in all those years, the only intercessor I had was him. And so it was very easy to take the love bite, because that was my only intercessor, and the only thing that interpreted was the interpretation of, I care about you. I can speak for you. And when you're all alone and you feel like you've been being screwed your entire life, and you don't understand what's going on, and you're willing to take responsibility, and you're making the steps and stuff is still not turning out right, and you're still praying and making adjustments, and you're really working on it, and you don't understand, and that's when you start studying psychology and you start looking at things. That's when you don't give up and you start studying the ins and outs of things. And so I went there to this meeting years later after I went through the mental health system, and I'm telling my story because I had straightened out my life, because there's many plateaus to living. And so I wasn't in that place long ago where I was doing the heavy stuff, but I was the housewife who would drink, you know what I'm saying, have my little wine to be able to cope, and my little marijuana for the post-traumatic stress disorder. And I'm dealing with my situation, and I'm trying to figure it out. The best thing you can have is family and friends for help, you know, and economy that's stolen when you have ideas, and that turns into merchandise, because it all starts with a thought. And when you're policed and people are taking your merchandise, what could have been merchandise, had you not been derailed mentally or emotionally or been supported like other cultures do, you might have been able to get some kind of economy, or at least a stable environment where you'd be at peace and had tranquility. And so the science of it is that your environment, like noise pollutants, plays a big part. Noise pollutants plays a big part in being able to be at a higher frequency to levitate higher thought. You know what I'm saying? For culture. Right, family? So I go there and I'm telling my story, and I noticed that people were saying personal things that happened inside my house. Now I have to deal with another aspect. Now I'm desperately, can you imagine, desperately trying to stay away from the crazy thing. So you're minimizing everything. That's a way that you can deal with things, is to minimize everything. Not focusing on things, only focusing on what you're trying to do, and block out everything else. That way you can deal with what you're dealing with, because you learn that you're empathic. They say you have post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay, so we'll logically deal with this, right? And tune out of everything. But see, if you're a part of the targeted individual program and you're being human trafficked, they want you to know that they're following you, and they're doing it because that's part of the psychological warfare. So wherever you go, they need a way for you to trigger you and let you know that we're watching you. And you're helpless and there's nothing you can do about it. So my morning routine, getting up 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, going out to my back porch, doing my stretching, doing my yoga, that shows up on the radar. Gaslighting me, street performing, in a meeting, as if mimicking me, mirroring me. They would always mirror me. Whatever I was doing, they were doing too when they shared. Exactly, to the letter. I learned about Shern. I learned about voice-to-skull technology. I learned about quantum D-Waves computer. And I learned about the way that it works and how the computer works. I learned that through Anthony Patch, how they were using the targeted individuals, the relaying it to Silicon Valley, part of the relay of the neural links of what some of the targeted individuals are thinking and feeling because it's lucrative material. Remember, the straw man. Remember, we've been in debt. Remember, we've been sleeping. Remember, this is a monopoly, and that as long as we're sleeping, you can't combat or fight any of it. So they've literally been selling the ideas and marketing things that we've been dismissing worldwide. That's why wherever you go, you see the predominant people that they have as a spokespersons for society via information that they've been taught or fed. Neuralink. I wonder if that's one of, because I'm not on the inside of that, I wonder if that's one of the perks. You get fed the Neuralink. So you get told that you get to upgrade your intelligence and stuff. It's like already the transhumanism. That ice cream truck is so fascinating. Things that you said only in your home get repeated verbatim in the public by the street performers. I decided not to wear my underpants and went to the walker that I usually use. Somebody was using that locker. So I went to the next locker that I would have used for my personality, right? Because we're creatures of habit. And there was a pair of panties right in the top. Like, we knew. We knew. That's how close we are to you. Go crazy, go crazy, go crazy. Now my daughter is 30. She's been in the hospital for 6 freaking years. They won't let her out. They play games with her. The judge plays games with her. She's been insulted, assaulted, sexually abused in there. They fired the guy, but she can't get a lawsuit. Her lawyer plays games. They play a lot of gaslighting. There's no money for a lawyer for me to go fight. I only have but so much patience dealing with my own, being a targeted individual out here, getting the information that I need from out here. She has no clue to what's going on, because imagine, I can only tell her so much while she's inside of there. They're trying to get me in there, trying to break me down emotionally, where I have to go to their, I have to agree and co-sign to go to their policing areas. So there was a woman that I was getting a ride from to the meetings, because you're supposed to be friends. And I noticed how that friendship stuff, where you're supposed to be helping each other, like sponsors and stuff, that wasn't working out. And I started to look closer. And that's because of the gang stalkers needing me to know that they were doing it, that I realized that I was definitely not crazy. And then I learned more in the occult systems. I've been in this area, in this house, for almost 10 years. There's so many things that happened that allowed me to be able to see what was going on. I couldn't figure it out at first. Pieces are coming together. I thank the family for doing your research and allowing whatever you found to come together, because it helped to connect to the different pieces and components that I've been dealing with. I've been sharing. This is Regina's Rabbit Hole. This is Siren Buddha Medicine. This is talk therapy, and I'm talking about my life. I'm a targeted individual. I have been being human trafficked. I've been through so much, and my story is your story. While we go to the movies, and think, oh wow, that's just so fantastic. What a fantastic story happened to that person. I've been teaching you so much about what they've been doing to us. How we've been desensitized. How you're already dead if you don't care about the next man's story. Why the flips it any? You gave permission for nobody to care about you at all. Just get yours, get yours, get yours, get yours. But you're going to get got eventually. Because that's your mentality and what you think. And they don't tell us that. Just do your job and collect that check. And harden your heart so you don't have to think about the kind of madness that you're contributing to. That's what our system is built on in the Matrix, right? So I'm getting rides from this woman. I have this thing called sponsorship. Her name reminds me of a name of my cousins. Her name is Julia. They play head games with you too, and they match you with things like triggers, vibrations, and frequencies. Hi, Sweet Pea. So, I was getting rides with her, and at this point, with a lot of things that I had been through in my life, that I skipped over a lot of like the individual stuff that I went through before I even realized what I was trying to get a clue. The whole time it was happening, I was being gaslighted and hurted and stuff, you know, since my youth, and I didn't know it at this time, that I had been a part of this program the whole time. And, you know, I am making the equations that it probably had to do with the psych hospital, and it probably had to do with, you know, maybe my past. I put my father in it. He died on my birthday, and so I was making these strange equations. And then my birthday, I did further research on sirens, on women, on the history of the planet, on the extraterrestrial history of the planet, on bloodlines, on A and B, positive and negative blood types, on R and H, on negative, and, you know, different things that fit with the research that I was doing. I looked at Revelations, some of the stuff that we're talking about in the Bible, the synchronicity with Santos Bonacci, and the extraterrestrial history from Dan Winters. I studied with Bobby Hemmett, his stuff online, and saw the synchronicities and the parallels within the stories on the timeline. I saw our story, y'all. I saw the updated story and what made more sense, and how we've been being policed and being kept asleep. One of my top questions was, how are they policing us? How are they using the deferment? How are they getting us to go along with them sucking the energy out of us? What are the cosigns, right, in the contract? And so I started to look at the straw man thing and how they, the different ways that energy looks. I've been teaching you all the stuff that I have learned. I've been teaching you a lot of it. Not everything. It's so much. It just pours out. And like all the troubles that I have to do usually to get online and to usually fight, to stay focused and not look insane, which would sabotage future goals that I had to stabilize myself with economy, or at least an environment where I could be at peace, being self, relaying messages from our Creator. To be able to at least feed myself with it and not just look at them feed themselves with what I'm learning and claim that I'm crazy. Why they kill me. And so I'm sitting there looking at them do these things to me, gaslighting me with things that were personal, that only happened in my house. I'm looking at the big job of, before anybody even knew, before you could even explain half of what was going on to you to even make sense, people had to be educated that these technologies, or that these things were even going on. Like mind control, like the Montauk Project, like quantum control, like quantum mechanics, quantum D-wave computers like CERN. And what's holding all this into place? The secret. What will make little old me so important? I made the equation because I'm born on 2269. That's Groundhog's Day, 1969, at 6:09, realizing that there was a powerful magnetism to my date of birth. And my daughter's date of birth that they got in the hospital. Hers is 8887 for those who do occult systems. Energy never dies, it only transforms. They know who you are, your date of birth from the strongman. When they give you the social security number and they put you down in the computer and the Vatican has your butt. Santos Bonacci talks about the Vatican and their paper balls. That helped me to understand more about the black magic and the way that I was seeing me being police manifesting. The Matrix movie was phenomenal, but even more phenomenal was seeing how the Matrix book breaks down into real life and looking at how they did keep us asleep, how we are batteries, how we are in these pods, these bubbles, these communities, these stasis of thought. And they use us for batteries, for floating thought. That brings them economy, leaving us depleted like drones. That's the Walking Dead theory. It's just another metaphor. To be able to see how they actually took her thoughts and her creativity and what could have been revenue for her and whatever furthered those kind of lucrative thoughts and creativity into whatever community or platform she wanted to with that kind of moolah. How they made money and they were able to live soft and good and fancy off of her creative juices. Kundalini energy that they're wasting, that I learned about how we're young, wild, and free and spilling all our creative juices. Trying to have sex with each other when there's many ways to make love to one another that don't even have to do with touching. We do it all the time. But because they played with the word, they're playing with us, but we can't play with ourselves. The only way we can imagine playing with ourselves is with hands, physically. But we play with ourselves all the time. It's called mental masturbation. But if energy never dies and it only transforms, how does that transpire? These are the kind of ideas and things that we do, that they try to defer us from. With ice cream trucks and fire engines and police cars and death threats and love bites and community that turns on you. Who's floating these thoughts? Who, because of the state of the economy and we're not looking right, destitute, a desert, hell, starving for resources, for flow, for lucrative, for something lucrative. Break that metaphor down. It's not always water, okay? Water is thought also. The creative juices float on thought. Dr. Emoto talked about how water holds messages. It's a messaging system. It floats the messaging system, and we're over 70% water. This is the science that was lost to us as a community. Will we be yelling and screaming at each other? And so, will we be so ignorant if we knew how important and imperative our words were, that they could actually be healing? Seriously? That environments, by just the noise alone, by doctoring it, could change the atmosphere. By choosing, by having the choice of what kind of people we are around, could change the way that we felt about health and change the way that we thought and the way that we were feeling. Why do you think hurt people, or people become psychotic, or abuse children, you know, in bad environments, go out and they just wig out? It's a process. It's vibrational frequency. It's alchemy. And these are the kind of things that they're policing while they're hurting us, hurting me. She would give me rides when I went to these meetings, trying to help myself, sharing my individual story. And one of the things that was so important to the people that were gaslighting me and policing in the meetings was, and I didn't get to the good part yet, that whatever I was thinking, whatever I was saying could be attributed to a system that they had already accounted for already. They would say things like, oh, I'm so glad that I've been here. I've raised my children in AA so that they get the value of these systems because they have what's called the 12 steps and 12 traditions. It's like looking for spiritual principles. It's like a different way when you're looking for spirituality, how we look at the 10 Commandments, looking for guidance, looking for thirsty for spiritual water, for spiritual food. You know, they would even say some can have water and others are not ready for meat. You're not ready for the meat, but you can have the water or the wine. You're not ready for the bread, the meat of the lesson, but you can have this. You ain't get nothing here. You ain't get nothing. You ain't get nothing. You got nothing but air. And then it's distorted. The world's upside down and backwards. They took the message that would have been food for thought and totally obliterated it. And so it was important for them in their psych op to make me think that what came from me, the essence of me, didn't mean anything. They tried to make Sophia Stewart feel like that she wasn't having it, and she fought back, and she had the means to fight back. And because of that, we have the face that was behind that masterful piece of work, where someone was able to channel the voices and images that we're told normally to stay away from within our society, defy those messages and channel it and make a major contribution into how we decipher the matrix. Not only that, but you're able to look at the multi-dimensional effect on the metaphor and how our ancestors actually work. Where you can see the matrix right in front of your face, how they took her spiritual, how they took her lucrative wares that came from the essences of her. Turn that whole metaphor of what happened inside out, backwards and forwards 10 times, but I can do it all day. But you need to do it on your own. The Matrix is the make-believe world. They may believe that she didn't do that they do it. They snatched her stuff, hijacked it, and used their systems of enforcement. The court systems, people, they lied on her. They paid people off. They did a whole bunch of stuff. How they did her creative material, her copyrighted material, her God-given material is a book all by itself. So the creator, our creator, gave her a book, gave her insight that she puts in a book, and they took that book and hijacked it. That's the Matrix, y'all. And the Matrix, she's giving you imagery and metaphors and symbolism. It's literally and figuratively on how we get treated in today's world right now. She's still fighting to get her freaking money. She won it. They didn't give it. They're paying money that probably, by the time they finish paying that money, she may not have no money to give her. As much money as they owe her from the proceeds that they made living pretty off of this woman's material, our sister's material, as much money as they made off of it. You know, and we're able to float them living their life day to day where they didn't have the pressures and stuff. She had to go there and fight and hire lawyers and fill out paperwork and go on talk shows and plead her case and fight and fight and fight and fight just to let her face be attached to her own work that our creator gave her. Do you hear what I'm saying? And we love that movie, don't we? And do we also know that that movie is attached to the Terminator? chapter 1, 2, and 3. Different times that Neo was alive. She'll tell you herself. Check out her interviews online. I have permission to interview her and would have been interviewed her if I was in a more stable environment. Certain things would have been a lot more easier. I'm trying to tell you the things that I've done now have been the shortcut to the easiest route, the path of least resistance that I could take as a targeted individual with all this different stuff going on. Because the first thing you can do in order to explain what's happening is to educate people so that they can decipher what it is that's happening. Just like I gave you the materials and able to decipher the movie, Metaphors and Parable. This is the time we're in. No worries. No worries. This is the time we're in where we have to break down metaphors and parable. We have to break down the matrix. We're in a time of learning where we're waking up. Anybody used to study with me or listen to me years ago where there wasn't as much noise, where the increase of noise, you never saw any bums rolling down the street with shopping carts or walking up on me when I was dancing and stuff. There's been an increase in the abuses that I've been going through. There's actually a homeless person that's been staying in a trailer in a parking lot right over there. That's a setup waiting to happen. They set things up and wait for them to happen so that the scenario is already there. So they can say, okay, well, the incident happened and it was the bum in the parking lot that didn't, our car was broken into. But they went through the car. Don't know who did it. Because of first response and the police, I already know. Why bother calling them? They're trying to get me to call the police. The whole narrative is to want me to call the police. As a woman, I already did my job and told the men what has been going on. And you're looking at it saying, did you see that? Did you hear that? We should do something about it. The guy who owns the realty agents that has the cameras right there that I've already said things about previously asked me what's going on and why don't I do something about it, and tells me I can report it, what I can do to report it. It's like there's a whole narrative waiting for me to report it. Why? Well, you know, I don't even want to deal with those police. What happened with my dog? Where they sent the police here and I had to pay the fine? When my dog was after my dog was kidnapped, and the person who kidnapped my dog, Benjamin, had scratched them. Then I get my dog back. Then my dog ends up with cancer and he's buried in my backyard. Then I find out that that's one of the things that the people do to targeted individuals is kill their pets. Thanks, guys. Part of the psych op is to wonder whether your dog died on its own or whether it was part of the psych op. Thanks, guys. So I'm riding to the meetings with this woman, and she's my only ride and my only connection to the public. And I feel like, okay, well, that's my only safe spot, right? With other people that are at least trying to help themselves within this bubble in society. I could at least try to meet people in AA. Out of the blue, she just drops me and tells me she can't take me anymore. Even though I was dealing with all the other stuff and dealing with her, she would gaslight me too. I would ignore it. I was doing anything desperately to hold on to whatever kind of social setting that I could get some sanity or some kind of comfort, some kind of reason. And she just said, oh, I'm not taking you anymore. And this is weird, right? This is the gaslighting. We were riding to the meeting like we would go a couple of times a week. And I enjoyed having a friend and a place to go, like I said. We're in self-improvement. So I'm like a little doggy when it comes to stuff like that. We're going to improve, we're going to improve, we're going to learn something. I get to get out of this mind state and get into the other one where we're going on an uphill. They use that against you too. And so they herd you into sections where you're most likely to bump into one of them acting stupid. And so that puts more damage on you spiritually. And so the demons are able to eat the luge a lot more quickly. okay? And they're able to derail you and to slow down what you're doing so that they can capitalize on it, and you can't, leaving you disenfranchised and looking cuckoos, and leaving that population that's mimicking the stuff that's coming from us looking grand and spectacular and in control, keeping them with the money and control of, I can't even get up out of here to get a peaceful environment because part of it, no donations, the way that we look at each other, the way that I've been being policed. I can see someone twerk or fight or say something stupid get more hits than us trying to improve our situation or talk about the truths of what we've been dealing with within the society. They even got our own is policing us hard just to keep hold of whatever little bit they have. And like, I don't know what situation they're in, if they got threatens, their children, their life, you know what I'm saying, their livelihood. I don't know. I don't know if it's just the brainwashing, if it's just the oath or what. I do know this I'm ready to tell you this part. Oh, then I went to the meeting after she told me no. She kept going to one of the only meetings that I could get to, that I could walk to. She would show up. And she had my name, Julia, of my cousins too. So that reminded me, all military, come from a military family. Okay? I come from a military family. A lot of them have served. And what I learned about the military, I was looking at the Masons and the Masons only. And I was looking at the military. I was looking at the different branches that was coming together little by little. Like I did a talk show on construction, you know, and how it would be so easy with their big equipment and stuff like that, because they know the piping and the sectors and stuff, and how you rarely see minorities within the construction business, you know, and that's with unions, and how I saw a policing in that area, that if something went down, they would be able to, because I saw a vision, I was showed a vision on them blocking bridges and, you know, having a monopoly on that. And that being a way for them to police people, and it being an unfair policing, because they have affiliations with, you know, people like that, with hunting, just looking at lifestyle, bunkers, more money, you know, because of the type of work that they have and the skills that they have. They would know where, you know, the government would want to know who those people were and police them, because, you know, gonna have to end this soon, because you know where all the piping and plumbing and wiring and stuff like that is. People who police those, that's a whole nother section, okay? That's where it goes into masonry and brickwork and stuff like that, the wiring and the layout of cities. You know their cities, the tunnels, bridges, and all that. Do you know any of that, Leroy, to staying in the ghetto with a child running after the ice cream truck with a song on it that was meant to suppress us? Anyway, what I wanted to say before this leaves, I'm gonna have to make another one. This is just talking about myself and my life. Is check out Dr. Inky, Minister Inky, right now, right? With his Eat Right for the Hepatitis. He does biochemistry. He's an herbalist. He's a really good herbalist doctor. We don't have to agree with every component of each part, each of our lifestyles when it comes to the consciousness community. That component, he knows his stuff inside and out when it comes to black genetics and genetics in general, and the kind of stuff that they're trying to get over with vaccines and all that kind of stuff. And he's being hit hard right now. I've been being hit hard here by myself, but I'm just glad to be able to see the collision when two worlds collide, the collision of the different aspects and realms of thought that allow you to be able to even listen to me, to know that I'm telling you the truth, that there's a possibility that I'm not crazy, that you can wake up, that our lessons, the individual lessons, each one teach one. This is not a war fought individually. And the reason why the war will not be televised is because the military is behind this. What do? Because we're so depleted of resources within these social dynamics, within the matrix, what do? They got our children running into the military just to be able to afford an education. This has been going on for quite a while. Not only do we have the Ku Klux Klan, which told us, we're in your churches and your schools and your doctors and your ooh and your ooh and a boo.
We got you in your court systems. We're shooting you, we're killing you. But respect this. Remember that we're qualified and this is a reputable source. And if you take too much of it, remember the side effects are diarrhea and heart attack. And
okay? Use their brain. There's a lot of psych ops going on. And the material and the stuff, the leading thing right now is technology, military technology and policing and spying and stuff like that, with the technology and stuff going on right now. We are in the matrix. Why was that book so freaking... Our ancestors don't play. You cannot run away from... You can't make something... They can't make something from nothing. You can't even... I don't even understand what it is that they're doing. Everything that you get has to come from the womb space of our Creator. All the resources. So everything that they use to attack us also comes from us. So you're not beating our ancestor, but they are trying to deplete the magnetism from out of the planet, and that's why they take all of the crystals and the golds and stuff out of the planet. You know, because you can connect. I'm rushing so that we don't get cut off, so there's a connection to this. To the magnetism and the connectivity to the earth. All these different systems and things that I've been talking about have been being suppressed information that you need to learn how to run our bodies and stuff. That there's a magnetism, that there's a consciousness grid, that there's a connectivity, that it's not just nothing. Energy doesn't die. It's not nothing, it's something. And that something has been what they've been policing us with and usurping our energy with by compartmentalizing us, making us think that these things don't happen. The matrix is real. I'm just telling you about some of the things that I've been through in my life and how they've policed me and my ability to be able to talk to you and make that connectivity. Now, the military is where we allow our children going in there feeling like they're in good hands, that they're doing something beneficial. We go to church thinking that we're doing something beneficial. We go to school thinking that we're doing something beneficial. We put people in the crazy house thinking that we're doing something beneficial. We take the medication thinking that we're doing something beneficial. We take the oath thinking that we're going to do something beneficial. We carry out our duty thinking that we're doing something beneficial. And these are the things that they're using against us. What does the assassin want? A place to call home. And you can't have home if there is no law and there's no peace and tranquility. All counterproductive and forfeit. The snake that eats itself. The reason why we have children is for the medicine, the media sign, the snake that eats itself. This is Siren Bodhisattva medicine. Our ancestors give us to police us. And they police us. And they have been trying to beat us and defeat us. They're taking our children and putting them in the meat grinder like the parasites, like Troopers, Star Troopers. Check out that movie, Through the Disclosure. Ship Troopers is very metaphorical. Just look at it in a different way. The parasites are inside. We got Morgellons, and there's different ways that parasites are invading us, right? We have different diseases that are happening around right now, okay? And so they're definitely one up on the situation, love, okay? And that's a way to police us too, through this unit, through that oath. The doctors and the teachers and the lawyers and the judges that come from out of that. When they go in, they take an oath. And when they come out, they come back in allegiance to that. They become the police. They become the people that, we're killing your mama, bitch ass nigga. What you gonna do about it? Oh, don't get upset. Be a lady and watch your mouth. Watch your freaking dirty little mouth and stay in a woman's place. Go do dishes. Be barefooted. Be pregnant. But keep your mouth shut. And the people that I became affiliated with learned that they were into sex trafficking. Why should I keep my mouth shut when you're killing my children? You've been leaving me here, killing me, laughing all in my face, policing me this way, daring me, daring everybody else to continue to look at me as if I'm crazy. so that we don't wake up while you stay lucrative and build a bunker before the whole thing goes kaboom, hoping that you find a space to be okay. Meanwhile, I mean, y'all policing better wake up, because you're stopping us from having systems that would help us. What, is it just going to be the military? Like, they're not going to, if you're turning on each other now, on your own brothers and sisters and mothers and stuff who are not military, who you feel like you were told caused the problem. I'm isolated because I come from a family that's mostly military. I wonder, why do they act so strange and treat me this way? Maybe it's just because of my past. And then I would think about spirituality, and I would think about agape love, and like a couple of them are even ministers and stuff. Then I learned about the ministers and the Masons, and you know what I'm saying, the allegiances, and I was like, well, how deep does this freaking rabbit hole go? That's why I'm Regina's rabbit hole, y'all. Much love to you and yours. This is Siren Buddha Medicine. My phone is going to cut off soon. I have to charge it. I'm going to leave it like this today. I'm out.